the National Agency of Youth has also made some very important steps to address the issue, but we also see that there is still a lot to be done in this direction to strengthen the youth work, to create this enabling environment, support the youth organizations which are providers of the youth work in the country, and to improve the quality of the youth work. Today's meeting will be dedicated to this issue. We will have, this meeting is organized in the framework of the project National Convention on the EU in Georgia, which is implemented by the Research Center of the Slovak Foreign Policy Association and Levan Mikeladze Foundation. The project encompasses development of recommendations in 3 directions: youth economic empowerment, non-formal education, and state support funding mechanisms of youth initiatives. 3 working groups have been created. They have already done some work. Today we will have the presentation of 1 policy paper, and after the meeting we will have an opportunity to provide some comments and suggestions for the policy paper that will be finalized after some time. Shortly about today's agenda. We will have a presentation of the policy paper written by Marina Joania, youth policy expert. And after the presentation, the youth policy expert of the Research Center of the Slovak Foreign Policy Association will speak about recognition and validation of the skills acquired through youth work, digital platforms for youth work management. We'll have time for some question and answers after the presentations, and you are welcome to make comments, to make suggestions. And besides today, you will have also 1 week ahead to send written suggestions and comments after you carefully read the policy paper. So now I would like to give floor to Mrs. Marina for the presentation. Sorry, co-chair. I'm sorry.
We distribute policy paper. I haven't seen it. So.
Yeah, now we will have, but first my co-chair will address, and then there will be presentation. Yes.
Madloba, Irina. პირველ რიგში მინდა აღნიშნო, რომ 2019 წელს, როდესაც ახალგაზრდობის სააგენტო შეიქმნა, ქალბატონი ირინა მაშინ ახალგაზრდულ მიმართულებას ხელმძღვანელობდა საპარლამენტო კომიტეტში და მისი ძალიან დიდი როლი არის ამ ახალგაზრდობისთვის ამ მნიშვნელოვანი ცვლილების განხორციელებაში. Ისიც კიდევ ერთხელ მინდა რომ მადლობა გადაუხადო ჩვენ ქალბატონ მარინასთან და თამთასთან ერთად სლოვაკეთში ჰქონდა სასწავლო ტური ზუსტად ამ თემასთან დაკავშირებით. ესე იგი ჩვენი პარტნიორი მიქელაძის ფონდის ორგანიზებით, რისთვისაც მინდა აქვე ვისარგებლო შემთხვევით და მადლობა გადაუხადო, იმიტომ რომ ძალიან მნიშვნელოვანი და ნაყოფიერი შეხვედრები ჰქონდა ამ მიმართულებით და ძალიან მაღალ დონეზე იყო ორგანიზებული ეს სასწავლო ტური. ქალბატონ მარინასთან ინტენსიურად თავისუფალ დროს თითქმის განვიხილავდით სხვადასხვა შესაძლებლობებს და ერთადერთი რაც იყო თქვათ ჩემი როგორც ახალგაზრდობის სააგენტოს წარმომადგენლის მთავარი თხოვნა ქალბატონი მარინას მიმართ ეს იყო რომ ეს დოკუმენტი ყოფილიყო ქმედითი, ანუ ყოფილიყო აღსასრულებლად ესე იგი მარტივი შესაძლებელი აღსასრულებლად, რაშიც გარკვეული მონახაზი უკვე გაკეთებული ჰქონდა, თუმცა მეც საბოლოო ვარიანტი არ მინახავს და ეხლა დიდი სიამოვნებით მოვისმენ ქალბატონი მარინას პრეზენტაციას. კიდევ ერთხელ მადლობა მობრძანებისთვის და დღეს დასწრებისთვის.
Thanks for opportunity, for giving me the chance to be involved in this project and to prepare some recommendations. As Ms. Irina explained, youth is the main driver of the economy, and skilled youth is better skilled youth is the main driver and supports developments of country. That's why it is important to establish a quality assurance framework for those providers, those organizations who are providing the youth work. We were in Slovakia, and we have seen a lot of experience there. They also have such system, and they are accrediting the programs, giving accreditation for several years, and then they also giving the quality label to that organizations. The main aim of the document is to develop national quality assurance system, and the main points in this document is key points for national quality assurance system is legal basis for quality management in the youth sector in Georgia, and clear, transparent structures of institutions for quality management in Georgia. For example, who will be involved in this quality management? It has to be, it's have to be the structure. Clearly assigned responsibilities and competencies in the development and implementation and execution of quality management system in youth sector. The development of quality framework for youth work, introduction of self-evaluation, which will enhance the capacity of youth organizations, and also introduction of external evaluation in youth work. Content of this document is state of play of youth work quality assurance system in Georgia, quality assurance of youth work in European countries, and we have selected the countries similar size to us, and also we have taken into consideration their success in quality management. And we have examined the quality assurance of Ireland, Czech Republic, Estonia, Finland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and Slovakia. And also there are recommendations. Now I would like to talk about the challenges which are in Georgia now in this direction. It is clear that there is no national system for quality assurance, not in providers level, local level, or national level. There is no legal regulations for status of youth workers. It was the attempt to develop the framework, and now we have only, there are two organizations who have these accredited programs, and they are for providing non-formal education. But these programs are accredited by National Center for Education Quality Enhancement. And it is very important also to develop the policy in this direction and to make the youth workers profession regular in Georgia. The majority of, I have seen different, examined different studies, and from their studies, it seems that the majority of youth work providers do not have structural approach for monitoring and evaluation. And also the majority of organizations do not have strategic and action plans. And they do not have structural approach also to develop this strategy and action plans. Now I would like to share some practices from European countries. And everybody is aware that one of the general objectives of this EU strategy 1927 is to support youth work as a catalyst for the improvement of the young people. Youth work is recognized as a powerful means for equipment youth with key personal, professional, and entrepreneurial competencies and skills, and as bridge into education, work, and also preventing exclusion. In order to, this is EU regulations, but in order to achieve these regulations, EU member states and also countries who are participating in Erasmus Plus have agreed to develop some quality assurance mechanisms in their countries to make youth work more competitive. The document explores and considers the measures measures implemented in those countries. Now let's start with Ireland. Ireland has a very good system of quality management. There exists they have the national quality assurance standards and framework. And the evaluation of the agencies or youth providers are based on self-evaluation and some external assessment that is this external assessment is conducted because to ensure that everything is correct in the self-assessment, because if youth providers, youth organizations are getting funding from government at national level, then their policies and organization have to be quality. They have to have the quality organizations. Another example is in Czech Republic. They have a title like this, NGO recognized by the Ministry of Education, which is providing quality for youth work. The title is awarded within the sub-program, and they are supporting youth work in this direction, and they have like this quality label. But they are providing every year with self-evaluation report. They are preparing the reports and sending to the government, Ministry of Education, who then in their turn examines the self-evaluation reports and decides how to continue with this organization. There is another means, is youth work quality self-assessment tools for youth NGOs and youth center, and it's called Olina. Olina tool is one of the final product of national projects. They were conducted the project case for the life, and they have developed within this framework these mechanisms. It is, I would like to mention that they have a very good online tool to manage all these processes for self-evaluation and external evaluation. And I think it's very good because some other countries do not have such evaluation mechanism.
External and internal.
External and internal and external, and this platform is interactive also. It's not only, it's also for keeping the information, and when you are developing some policy based on this policy, because it's also made this analysis, develop the relevant policies. Another system of good practice is in Estonia. They have the quality assessment model for local municipalities. The specific tools have been developed for use to local municipalities to support them in mapping the strengths and weaknesses of youth work in their municipalities, and and based on that, planning the future development. And there are 4 main indicators that have sub-indicators. There are variable possibilities for non-formal learning for young people. There are possibilities of gaining participation experience. There are conditions created of receiving youth information, prevention and counseling activities. The environment needed for quality youth work has been created at the local level. First, the local municipality conducts a self-assessment, after which external evaluation is being carried out. During the assessment, different youth work stakeholders have to be involved. The outcomes are based on the self and external assessment results also here, and the assessment process is not mandatory for the local municipalities, but helps the municipality to improve the quality within their municipalities. It's nationwide, but it is not imposing the municipalities to do such work. But everybody is eager to do such work because it's also linked to financing. There is also a good example in Finland. In Finland, youth work is statutory service, and it's regulated by the law. And because this is statutory service, the youth work services are also evaluated by the at municipal level, and also after that at regional level. The main idea of these evaluations is to measure whether the Finnish citizen can have equal services regardless of where the person is living. The evaluations also monitor how and to what extent the municipalities are fulfilling their obligations regarding youth work. As stated in the Youth Act, for example, the agencies choose which aspect of the evaluation they will concentrate on each year. It depends on municipality and the priority and the area. And I forget also one thing when examining the Estonian system. They have also very good established youth workers profession, and it is regulated, and it is implemented in different levels of qualification framework, even in doctoral level. Because they use the people who are in masters and studying to conduct the studies in the field of youth, and it's good that they have these different levels. Quality assurance of youth work in Wales. They have also this quality mark, and which provides a robust, independent external assessment of the quality and performance of organizations that they will deliver the youth work. The quality mark can be used for self-assessment, to plan the improvements, and to gain the national recognized quality mark. It depends. If you would like this recognized quality mark, then you have to do more. It consists of two distinct elements. It's quality standards for youth work, a set of indicators and quality standards that organization can use for self-assessment, to self-assess the quality and impact of their work with young people. They are assessing the impact of what they are doing. And also, second one is quality mark, a nationally recognized quality mark that the organizations can apply by developing a self-assessment and portfolio of evidence which is externally assessed. The quality mark consists of 3 levels. It's bronze, silver, and gold. The quality standards within each level, and quality standards comprising 3 associated indicators. There are also different indicators. The quality mark is suitable for any organizations that delivers the youth work. It's center, club, or some NGO. Now, North Island. They have training inspectorate, which is overseeing the all education system, and is responsible for visiting and assessing both formal and non-formal education services. But they are also looking for school or other levels of education. Services including the provision offered by schools and youth organizations. They publish various inspection reports regarding youth work, such as youth forums, youth centers, and other initiatives. The Quality Assurance Framework, CAP, is a culmination of collaborative approach by the youth center to ensure the best possible outcomes for young people. It provides a support and development tool that enables youth work organizations to articulate, assess, and improve their work within a structural framework. When there is a structural framework, then it is very easy to assess. The framework has 4 stages: understanding the context where they are working, discuss and assess evidence, create an action plan, and review the action plan. And quality assurance in Slovakia, one of the forms of quality assurance in Slovakia is the accreditation of non-formal education programs in youth work by the Accreditation Commission in the field of youth work. Accreditation Commission is established by the Ministry of Education, and Accreditation Commission also evaluates application of the quality. As I mentioned, they have also this quality label, the quality label. In the amendment of the law on support of youth work, a quality label was included. And Ministry of Education also introduced a new institute of the quality brand. It's Modern Youth Centers. The quality label Modern Youth Center should be awarded by the Ministry of Education based on applications evaluated by the Accreditation Commission in the field of youth work. And I would like to mention also that all these countries are having well-established evidence-driven system, which means that they are studying youth policy in different fields, so they have this thematic analysis in different directions, and based on this analysis, they are developing their policies. And now recommendations. The development of system and practices to improve the quality of national youth policy management on central and municipality levels is envisaged in the Georgian National Youth Policy Concept 2013. It is an important topic in the current debate on the legal recognition of the youth work. And you know that youth organizations without drivers, youth workers, the youth organizations themselves can't do anything without qualified persons. And that's why it's also very important. It is recommended development of quality assurance systems in youth sector, which allows youth work organizations to assess service provision, to identify areas for development, provide an opportunity to express youth work through the development of a common language within a structural framework that everybody will speak in the same language, establish standards in the practice and provision of youth work, provide an enhanced evidence base for youth work, ensure resources are used effectively in the youth work sector, provide a basis for whole organization assessment, which will support development of quality culture within the youth providers and within these organizations. And now recommendations. I would like also to mention that I have seen a lot of studies conducted by the Youth Agency and also other organizations. And they have some structural approach of developing this system and studies, but it's need a more structural approach to develop, to conduct more thematic analysis in different directions, which will support development, the policy, and to develop this evidence-based policy. Now recommendations, following steps have to be taken if we would like to establish quality assurance system in Georgia. It's develop the stakeholders map with their needs and expectations. There are a lot of stakeholders in these sectors, and we have to know all their needs and expectations. And it's like to visualize all this maybe in one paper, in schematic or infographics or somehow. Negotiate and agree the policy with main stakeholders. Then establish cross-national, cross-sectoral steering committee on quality of youth work. We know that in the field, it's youth work is cross-sectoral, and different ministries, different governmental organizations are included. included to manage this. Develop national quality assurance framework for youth work, as we have seen in other countries, which is manageable and easy for using. Develop national quality assurance framework. Yes, please. Develop quality assurance procedures. Develop guidelines for youth work service providers for self-evaluation. Develop guidelines for regulatory body, and it have to be decided who will be regulatory body, maybe youth agency. They will establish some council, some evaluation council. It has to be discussed. And develop guidelines for also this regulatory body. Develop training materials for all involved bodies, because it's new and everybody needs this capacity development exercises. Revision and amendment of legislative framework, because when you are developing some policy, it linked to legislation, and maybe it will need some legislation changes. Develop digital portal for quality assurance management, and capacity building of youth providers and all involved bodies. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Mrs. Joania. That was very interesting presentation about all the, different experiences of exemplary countries with very strong youth policy. All those countries we know that have very strong youth policies. So I think it's very good for us to see what are the best practices there, and then explore all the possibilities in Georgia. So next presentation is by Ivana Ulichna, youth policy expert of Slovak Research Center. Ivana will join us through Zoom because she did not manage to travel to Georgia, unfortunately. I hope you will all be able to hear her voice. If there is any technical problem, then tell us and we'll try to fix it. So if Mrs. Ivana, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here with you today, at least online. I hope that maybe we will have an opportunity to see each other in the future. My name is Ivana Ulichna. I work as an expert for the Slovak Foreign Policy Association, and I have worked. Can you hear me? Is that all right?
Yes, but it's very low. I don't know if it's possible to make it higher, louder.
All right. Is that better?
Yeah. Just a moment.
Can you say something? ეს დინამიკებიდან არის ეკხმა. კი, უბრალოდ ესეთი ხმა ცოტა. აი, მანდედან დინამიკებში არის.
დინამიკებზე
არ ხდება ეს
სუმიდან უნდა გადაიღოს.
ეს ხო HDMI არის და გადაიხადეთ
და ეს გაჭირდება.
არა მე სხვა ვანა
ერთი წამით.
Does it help if I speak like this?
Maybe yes. ეს არის
HDMI გადაიტანს პირ მას პროექტორს და პროექტორი ახლა დაერთებული ის
Can you try now?
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
And now?
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
ეგ აქ უნდა იყოს.
ესეც შესაძლებელია რა.
უსასმენების შესაერთებელი კი არის. სადოთ აბა ამაზე დაერთება.
გადაიტანე.
აქედან არის ალბათ.
არა იქ დიდი შესაერთებელი შეიძლება.
სად არის? აი.
Please try now.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
All right. Perfect.
It's
Thank
too
you.
loud now. Okay, so now you can start the presentation.
All right. So, sorry. Can you see the slides changing?
Not yet.
All right. Let's try once again. Can you see it now?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So thank you. Today in my presentation, I will go through youth policy governance in the Slovak Republic, as Marina, to just go shortly around the structure of how youth policy governance is organized in the country. I will very briefly speak about quality of youth work assurance because Marina also tackled it. And then we will move to the recognition and validation of skills acquired through youth work and youth work in digital world. So youth policy governance is organized mainly by the Ministry of Education, but also 10 other state and public institutions, which are mainly located at ministries, other ministries than the Ministry of Education. But there are also local and regional self-governments that also create their own youth policies. And we have Juventa, which is the state organization which implements state youth policy and also functions as a sub-granting organization for NGOs who mostly implement the youth work programs. Juventa provides educational activities and information for youth workers, organizes networking for the stakeholders and youth organizations, as well as youth workers. And as Marina had said, the ministry conducts research in the field of youth and youth work through this state institution, Juventa, which then reports back to the Ministry of Education, and their annual reports then affect how the youth policy is implemented or coordinated at various levels. At the parliament level, we have two committees that also focus on youth policy, which is the Committee for Children and Youth and the Committee of the National Council for Education, Science, Youth and Sports. There are two cross-sectorial cooperation bodies that have been created. and that's the Interministerial Working Group for State Policy in the field of youth and Committee for Children and Youth. And both of these also include the NGO sector, at some occasions even the private sector, and their main role is to be involved and participate in the process of drafting, developing the youth policy, and then evaluating its performance and outcomes. The youth policy is defined in the strategy of the Slovak Republic for youth, always at some time period, and it contains the main objectives and indicators which are then measured, as well as and which are later evaluated in the annual youth reports. Funding comes from the programs for youth under the Ministry of Education, and the EU youth programs. The EU youth programs were a major contributor to the programs in Slovakia, even before we entered the European Union, which means as of 1998. Youth work funding in Slovakia comes, as I said, it's mainly implemented by NGOs, by non-profit institutions, which also include schools, and some governmental institutions as well. The funding comes from the Ministry of Education, from their grant schemes, or from municipalities, EU funds, as mentioned, higher territorial units, but also donations and contributions from legal entities and individuals, advertising revenues, and also business incomes, as now more and more NGOs are trying to use business models in their functioning. Quality of youth work assurance, which Marina has talked about, is assured mainly by the formal accreditation process by the Accreditation Commission. But an important tool is also Youth Pass, which is accreditation through the Erasmus Plus programs. And it's based on presenting competencies which were gained through mobility programs. However, even though we have had conversations at a cross-sectorial level about the quality of youth work assurance for many years now, the uniform criteria is still not set. Quality label by Ministry of Education, which is provided to NGOs or other institutions that work with youth, is Modern Youth Center, which needs to be accredited by the Commission. It's based on the application process every year. Basically, the centers or organizations which want to apply for this accreditation need to prove that they have enough experience, that they have qualified staff, and they also need to show the impact of their work in the past. At the level of municipalities, towns, and regions, however, there is a lack of agreement on how quality youth work should be defined. So when there are grant schemes and projects which are implemented through the funds directly from the Ministry of Education and its bodies such as Juventa, they usually adhere to the quality standards set by the ministry. But at the level of municipalities and regions, it's taken more as a recommendation or inspiration than a rule that needs to be enforced. There was a youth work study in 2019, and its key finding was that groups, institutions, and organizations involved in the state financial support system are better in strategic planning and providing information than those outside of the system. And now this key finding is very often used also in advocacy of institutions and organizations that are active in youth work, so that the budget that is assigned for youth work is increased, so that they can stabilize the functioning of organizations, which will result in increased impact and more effective work, of course. When it comes to the documents, one of the important ones was the declaration on the recognition of the contribution of non-formal education in youth work, which was created in 2019, and at 2013, sorry. It's still the leading awareness raising initiative of youth work value, and it brings together actors who consider non-formal education as an important tool. It has had over 100 signatories, which also includes companies, and many signatories joined because non-formal education is becoming prevalent as a tool of replacement of formal education in the fields where the formal education lags behind. So, for example, IT, technologies, innovation, most of these things are implemented, or this kind of education is implemented more as a non-formal education than formal education. That's why also the private sector that feels this gap in the labor market now tries to advocate for more like increased budget or more effective activities in the non-formal education and youth work. Okay. Now, when we are talking about the recognition and validation of skills, at the EU level, there is an important document which I listed if you wanted to see it afterwards, which is called the Recommendations of the Council of the European Union on the Validation of Non-Formal and Informal Learning. And EU countries were to implement these guidelines by 2018. In Slovakia, we have implemented those in like biggest, we have implemented them. Another thing is to what extent they're used in practice. Emphasis on all these issues all across the European Union is a response to the need of a flexible workforce in a rapidly changing labor market, as we have also seen during the pandemic. And as I have said, I put it here as well, that the national governments often lag behind in saturating the skills demands of the labor market. Recognition and validation of skills. In Slovakia, we do not have a unified national model for that, but we have a Lifelong Learning Act that was introduced in 2019, and it just define some preconditions for progress. The national qualifications framework that is now being created, and we also had one which was a bit obsolete. So this is defined as a publicly accessible register containing a description of partial and full qualifications distinguished and recognized in the Slovak Republic, required in the form of qualification standard and assessment standards. It defines the eligible educational institutions and the process of recognition of the results of further education. Once again, this is serves only as an inspiration in designing youth programs, and there is no regulation or enforcement by law. Neither it prevents organizations that do not adhere to that framework from applying for the grant scheme. However, the Lifelong Learning Act, we have two examples of implemented national projects that were of which aim was to strengthen the the recognition and the validation of youth work skills. So I will go through them briefly. The complex competences for real life project was the largest national initiative to support non-formal education in youth work, and it aimed at enabling young people and youth workers to have access to the renewed and flexible acquisition of skills in youth work with comprehensive counseling services. Its objectives were to support the quality of educational programs, to develop level of key skills of youth leaders and youth workers, to contribute to the recognition of competencies acquired in youth work in the field of formal education and labor market, and to promote social recognition of youth work and ensure the development of information channels and databases on youth work. I'm not going to read through all of it, but I will send you the presentation so you can take a look at it later. We have examples of activities of the project. One of the activities was to create a network of thematic youth centers. Each was focused on one priority thematic area. So the centers aimed to create, evaluate, develop practical education and training programs for youth workers and youth leaders, and to organize experiential education programs for youth workers and youth leaders. Also, these are the centers that were able to later obtain the quality assurance label that also Marina mentioned. The second activity was aimed to improve the quality of further education and training for youth workers, but also to promote the use of innovative methods such as experiential learning and approaches in youth work, also to teach youth workers and youth leaders how to prepare, implement, and evaluate youth activities. And these youth workers who graduated from the program were able to get certificates accredited by the state. They were motivated to get the accreditation and to participate in the entire program because, for example, if you work in education as a youth worker or a teacher, informal or informal education, your salary would develop from what kind of certificates and accreditations you have obtained. So this is also a tool of motivating youth workers to enhance their skills and develop. And activity 3 served as a space for practical verification of the acquired knowledge, skills, and attitudes of young leaders and youth workers, and to create space for the intersection of formal and non-formal education through activities and events. And I think I have said this at our previous meeting, that Slovakia at the moment is just starting or developing some kind of more sophisticated impact measurement of its activities. But this project has been measured in terms of results or outputs. So these are just some numbers that were hit by the project over 500 participants, professionals and youth workers who got the accreditation from the state. That there were thematic publications created, and basically it was trying to provide a framework for youth workers to provide their services in a higher quality. When it comes to youth work in the digital world, we have some platforms that were created by Juventa, by the governmental institution, and there are also but NGOs and the private sector are the leaders in this field. So we will take a look at some of the best practice examples. In Slovak, we call them smart youth work. All right. So there was a project that was implemented by Juventa, which is called On and Off. This is actually the project that focused on accreditation of youth work for youth workers. EduTV is another project established or implemented by the State Pedagogical Institute, which created a database of short educational videos. Most of them focus on school subjects, but also at soft skills and attitudes, global education, and many others. There is the national project IT Academy, which aims to create a model of education reflecting the demand at the labor market. And one of the NGO activities, there's this organization called Girls in IT, and they have been developing a platform for the recognition of IT skills. Their main aim is to motivate more young women to start studying IT and then get employed. Also the Ministry of Education, together with NGOs who developed this platform entitled Discover Your Competencies Online. This is the platform that can be used by youth workers. It's an online tool to assess the skills needed for setting up digital projects. So if you're an NGO or a school and you want to come up with your own project, and you need to go through this certification to make sure that you provide good quality of outcomes, which means increased skills of young people. All right, and then as I mentioned, the private sector is getting more and more involved because the validation or recognition of some kind of youth work or skills that has been implemented mainly by the private sector has not been recognized by the government. So the private sector focuses on developing these digital and entrepreneurial skills, such as hybrid application creation, digital games, and so on. These are also the skills that we lack in Slovakia to a great extent. One company, Pixel Federation, which is the biggest gaming organizer company in Slovakia, and two NGOs, one of them is Open Lab, another one is Butterfly Effect, created a joint system of certification of their own educational programs. And to a certain extent, when we look at solely at the quality of skills that young people get and the quality of youth work provided by any organization, for example, for the young people and for their future employers, this has a bigger value than some of the state accreditations, because Pixel Federation is one of the biggest employers in Slovakia when it comes to IT software, game development, and so on. So sometimes what happens is that they replace the state, or they create some kind of a system outside of the state, but it doesn't mean that their certification or any kind of validation and recognition of the skills is any less recognized or accepted in the outside world when we look at what young people want to achieve through participating at youth work activities. And these are examples of some of the references I have used. Thank you for your attention, and I will be looking forward to any questions and the discussion.
Thank you, Ivana. That was very interesting to listen all the experiences Slovakia has. We see that Slovakian youth policy system is pretty vigorous, and I think there are a lot of examples and elements of it that could be adopted in Georgia. Now we have a question and answer session, and we will proceed with this. For the opening, I would like to ask about the youth engagement in the process of evaluation and impact assessment of the youth work, because what we have looked into today is mainly the assessment of the processes and outcomes and outputs, and there are very few examples of real impact assessment in those countries that were given as example. So if there are any cases of the impact assessment with the engagement of youth to see what is the real impact of the youth work, that would be interesting to see. And another question is about role of the National Youth Agency in this process, in quality assurance of the youth work. As far as I am aware, national youth agencies are pretty strong in those countries which were presented today. Youth councils, sorry, national youth councils, I mean. And what is the role in this process of those national youth councils? So I don't know who will start, but. Or do you want to gather some more questions and then answer them together?
If.
Yeah. Okay, so we can have answered to these questions and then move to other questions.
Okay. All right, so sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to speak or someone else.
Yeah, please,
Yeah.
and then Mrs. Marina will continue, yeah.
All right, thank you. So in Slovakia, we have this National Youth Council, of course, that has partnered and has signed a memorandum with Juventa. And it's an umbrella organization for NGOs and non-profit institutions that work in the field of youth work. Their role, for example, this Slovak Youth Council has about 28 members at the moment, and the 28 members offer like feedback to the state institutions on the policies that are accepted or are in approval, but they also come up with recommendations and also often comment on the documents that are being created on the national level, at the ministerial level even. Before they actually go for the approval in the parliament. Oftentimes, the National Youth Council also works as an advocacy organization that reconnects important actors and stakeholders in the field and joins their voices together to advocate for improved policies or greater or increased budgets allocated for youth work. It has a very good cooperation with Juventa. Juventa is also, Juventa provides grants as sub-grants to these organizations that are gathered at the National Youth Council. So, so that's the donor organization, but then the advocacy, usually the conversation is between the National Youth Council and Juventa, and then the advocacy activities are aimed at the Ministry of Education, which oftentimes is slow at responding or at changes. At the moment, we have the National Educational Strategy, which is being redrafted and reformed. which is, I think, that the most positive change that we've had in the educational system for about 10 last years. But also NGOs and the private sector played a very important part in advocating and recommending what should be changed in the education. And when it comes to the impact measurement, as I said, we at the national level are at the start of doing this properly, besides just monitoring the outcomes and outputs of projects. But a very positive example that is now being implemented or adopted also by the Ministry of Education is the project Generation 3.0, which was funded by the Pontis Foundation, an NGO in Slovakia, and which started reconnecting experts in education from various fields, then youth workers, but also companies and mentors and innovators in education. And they created an incubation program through which they tried to get a positive educational approach to as many youth work centers or schools as possible. And then when they use what is called social standard impact measurement and create impact reports every single year on how it's going. And it's very honest in how it presents the results. So then they fundraise and they try to support financially the approaches that work the best. And these approaches then get into the national educational strategy for every year, and they are updated every year. And so far, this has been probably the most effective way of how to impact youth work and education in Slovakia from outside. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to add some points?
I would like to add that in those countries which I have mentioned, and those are good practices, there is pretty high quality youth organizations which are managed, who are managing at central level the youth organizations, and they are very strong. But they have different roles. For example, it depends on ministry, and they, in most countries, these youth councils are linked with Ministry of Education, because Ministry of Education covers all levels of education, and youth is connected to all levels. And they have different, some of them do quality assurance. For example, in the example of Northern Ireland, they have a good inspectorate system, and external quality assurance is done by this. But they have also this council, and this council is supporting youth organizations to develop their capacity.
Okay, thank you. So Nina has a question, please. Well, yeah, you can also have some comments and recommendations for the paper.
So it's like my statement, more like my feelings, what I was hearing, listening after both presentations. So
Ivana, can you hear Nina's voice?
Not at all.
No.
can I speak louder?
Yes.
I can repeat the question, but since it is not a question, then it's better if you hear it.
Try to speak louder. So I'm representing National Youth Council of Georgia. So I represent National Youth Council of Georgia, and it is very good when we are speaking about quality assurances and the self-evaluation tools, and also the countries and some practices from different countries. Firstly, what I would like to mention that it's a very good like examples, but it is that we are missing here Lithuania, because Lithuania is one of the leading in the youth policy, and they are developing youth work, and also the Georgian youth policy is based on Lithuanian national youth policy, which was starting from the 90s till today. So, and there are very good practices about youth work. And the second comment from my side, when we speak about quality assurance and youth work, when we speak about youth work, it doesn't mean that it's always connected to the youth organizations. Youth work can be independently also implemented by individuals. So that's why I think that all this, before we start like speaking about quality assurances and some evaluation forms coming from youth centers, municipalities, youth agency, or youth organizations, before we go there, we need to speak about youth workers themselves, because one of the biggest challenge in Georgia is that we do not have youth workers. I don't mean at all, but last 2 years, we already, not we Youth Council, but youth agency, together with Youth Workers Association, started, and it is now as a profession recognized. So we have already certified 60 youth workers in Georgia, which is recognized by the Ministry of Education. So, but the second challenge is connected with it, that there is no places to work. So, of course, this is centralized, but these programs to make recognition of youth work needs to be continued to then to go to to speak about quality assurance and to speak about the structures and providers. So the providers and stakeholders we can have, of course, including municipalities as youth NGOs, but before that, we need to go with the youth workers itself. Last year, I'm also the author that we have already competence framework of youth workers. This was done by the Youth Workers Association. It's not published yet, as I know, but it is printed, I know for sure. I can send that it is only in Georgian because it's based on, of course, the Georgian youth workers. So now there should be also be the national competence framework for the youth workers. And then we can easily have also the frameworks and quality assurances for the organizations and municipalities and so on. I can share these publications. I will take permission from the Youth Workers Association. And there are 3 publications, which is one practices, one about understanding of youth work in Georgia, and the second is competence framework for the youth workers in Georgia. And 2 directions there is competencies which youth work needs to increase for young people, and what kind of competencies youth workers can have themselves. And also it includes self-reflection and self-evaluation forms for the youth workers. I think it will help to this process and to lead to the assurances. All these documents are based on the European Commission Youth Work publication, and also on the portfolio of the Council of Europe for Youth Workers, which is also an online tool for the youth workers, for the self-evaluation and self-reflection. So this is my comment about youth work in general and about the policy paper. And the second about the Youth Council role. So in the different countries, different roles. Here, Youth Workers Association also became last year our member organization. So we are not competing with them, but we are trying to be involved in some working directions. Like an example, we were involved in publications, writing and expertise, and also collecting some data from the international practices. I think also one of the main stakeholders of this process is the Youth Workers Association, and National Youth Council role is just to advocate and to support in this process, because we have resources in the regions of Georgia and connections with the local organizations and municipalities. So this will be a huge contribution, I think, to the process. But of course, you were right that here we do not have, not only here, but in Eastern Partnership region, youth councils is not a strong organization. So those are like equal to the youth organizations. So in this process, I think the youth agency and the ministry needs to be continuously support the youth council to support the capacity building of the youth work and also youth organization. So this was like my comment in general about this, because if we will not continue like this, I think that these papers also will be just on the shelves, as we have now all 50 other documents on the shelves.
All the 50, okay. Yes, please. Thank you.
I'm David Handley from the European Union's Schools for Jobs programme. And I think there's a lot in common between what we're doing in the programme and the aims of this project. And I think I would like, we need some sort of dialogue, especially as we're working with youth workers and neo-youth work. Unfortunately, I had to leave now because I have a meeting in another part of the city at 5 o'clock. But I'll leave some of my business cards here, which is rather out-of-date business cards, because we just moved into this building across the hallway there. But I would certainly like to talk to representatives of the project about it, also
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for very interesting presentations. My name is Nora. I represent Youth Agency of Georgia. I would like to ask a question to Ms. Ivana, because I would like to use this opportunity. She's an expert of youth policy in Slovakia, so I would have a technical question. I don't know if you can hear me or you would repeat this question. Ivana, can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's not great, but I understand.
Yeah, just move a little bit.
Yes.
Just a little bit for 2 minutes as I ask you the question.
Thank you again for a very interesting presentation. My question is regarding the ministry's relationship with the municipalities, as it is the very important issue for our country. And the second is, you mentioned Juventa. So Juventa is an institution which is connected to Ministry of Education. And just a technical question would be, do you have another department within the ministry that deals with youth policy, or is this Juventa, which is the main provider of the youth policy in the country, and respectively the relationship with municipalities and vice versa of Juventa, or if there is an separate department in the Ministry of Education? Thank you very much.
Thank you a lot. As I said, the Ministry of Education is the main coordinator, which sets like the most essential policies or strategies for education and youth work. But then the regional self-governments have their own autonomy to amend or add to the youth policies. So there are some basic standards that they need to adhere to. But then, to a great extent, they can come up with their own initiatives, but also some kind of policies as well. It can also, so for example, about non-formal youth work, which is provided by school institutions. There, the municipal governments, for example, can even do accreditation of a secondary school program all by themselves without the ministry, but the ministry is still the main donor for the finances that are allocated for these activities. Then, of course, the regional self-governments have some small budgets that they can decide on themselves, but usually these budgets are so small that education is rarely a priority, which could be, usually the funding is needed somewhere else, or they tend to allocate it somewhere else. If you, that's what.
So mainly grant policies, and those are completely the independent bodies. Like municipality has their own policies and ministry has its own.
Yes, the ministry sets some essential criteria that needs to be fulfilled. But then, for example, if we are talking about educational programs that are run by schools, so the ministry said that these are like the three main criteria that it needs to adhere to. So, for example, the number of hours, so that it can be recognized and validated by the ministry. But then the regional self-governments completely decide themselves on what it's focused on, how the success is measured or established, and so on.
I understand. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Then you asked about Juventa. So,
yes.
Sorry. Yes. So Juventa is usually like a middleman between the NGOs, the schools, and the ministry. But ideally, when there are some policies that are being accepted, all three parts are represented in the committees that I have mentioned. So the committees are the place where there is the cross-stakeholder discussion on the issue that is being tackled, and then they take it from there. But yeah, Juventa is generally the main actor or the main implementer by the state policies towards other actors that are like lower in the ranking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There are two questions. First, thank you. Yeah.
First, I will present myself. Thank you so much for organizing this event. My question is for youth agency representative. I understand you are
Yes.
organizations here. My question is, yes, does youth agency have the, let's say, self-evaluation on monitoring this? Because as a participant of this project called Eastern Partnerships Civil Society Facility Fellowship. I think you were aware about this because someone said that this is one of the prestigious fellowship programs. So why I'm saying this, I'm a participant of this program and I require certain information from youth agency. I'm trying to obtain this information, but maybe you can show me a better way to get this information. For example, if you do self-evaluation, that means you already have a report. That means that for me it's much, let's say, easy way to get the report directly instead of doing this process. If you evaluate your
English words oder გამიჭერდა Ivana will guide us.
Vahtan will answer in Georgian, and then you will get some short overview of the answer in English by chat. Okay? Yeah, it's more internal issue. Yeah. Okay, so next question was, yes, please.
I have a question. Maybe you could explore more about the private sector engagement in youth work. What are the incentives and the framework of private sector engagement in youth work? And you have multinational organizations engaging in this direction, or more local SMEs and small businesses?
Have you heard the question? It was about private sector engagement in the youth work. What is the framework, and whether there are these big businesses engaged in the youth work, or rather small and medium enterprises?
Okay, so the framework is, if you mean something like state framework or anything else, it does not exist. So it's usually individual initiative of companies. And we have like responsible entrepreneurship, and CSR is becoming more and more prevalent in Slovakia. So even small companies try to have some kind of a CSR, social corporate responsibility activity, and also to integrate CSR as part of their activities. So we have companies that have education and youth work as a part of their services that they sell. But also we have companies which are bigger companies, such as I talked about Pixel Federation, but we also have more prevalently IT companies, because this is the skill that is most needed in Slovakia and we lack it. And if we have talent here, they usually move to Western Europe. So they often what happens is that these companies, small or medium or bigger ones, join their efforts, as happened, for example, in the case of the certification, joint certification. But usually what we learned in advocacy is that even if we try to advocate as the Youth Council of Slovakia, it's much better if you have any companies on board, because the government tends to listen to companies and employers more. So it's very different if an NGO says that this is the skill that we need to develop, we need to allocate more funding to development of this kind of youth work, let's say, and it's very different if a major employer in Slovakia sits there and says the same thing, because they just take them more seriously. So based on that, NGOs and other implementing institutions working in like youth work sector started taking companies on board of their activities. And now under the Ministry of Education, there is also a small grant scheme that is allocated for NGOs cooperating with the company directly at this, if it makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any? Yes, please.
What is which kind of approach China, for example, are most Georgia? Why?
We have to try our standard, because we cannot invent the bicycle again, but we will take from different countries and different experiences, maybe best things to do our, and it depends. It depends on discussions. It depends on resources. Maybe we will start with small and then improve it more, because it's not arguable that every organization have to have this internal quality assurance mechanisms, and internal quality culture to develop their work further. And it will be good thing if we will start in Georgia, maybe with small portions, but
Thank you. There is one more question. Yes, please.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
So my question is regarding the impact measurements and impact assessment, because during your presentation you mentioned this topic. And of course, we all understand that it's very crucial to have reported the impact, but it is connected to like huge human resources as well as financial ones. And do you have any special methods or tools developed for impact measurement in the youth work?
Okay, so well, one of them, you are right. It of course takes much funding to be able to do impact measurement in a higher quality. But I learned that if you count with doing impact measurement when you're like starting the project, developing some kind of a youth work activity, and you think from the beginning on, okay, how will I measure the impact? You tend to set up the project in a better way, and you can set up the measurement in a way that you can even do it yourself, and you will not need to, for example, hire external evaluators. But this is of course true for maybe some smaller initiatives or NGO activities. Then we have this social impact standard, which is based on a few key points that you should be looking at when measuring your impact, and that's much easier to do. So, for example, there was this youth work program that tried to accelerate innovation in education, and what they did is that they followed indicators such as the number of employees or people working on the project or the innovation, how many schools they impacted, and then they used control groups at a few schools. So, for example, if you have a big project, we usually worked with, for example, 2,000 students. So we would just have a control group, smaller control group at 2 or 3 schools, where you would measure the impact in more detail, but then it needs to be representative. But there is a smaller hack. If you're an NGO or an organization that is able to do it, we worked with academics, usually lecturers at universities, educational experts, who helped us set up the impact measurement tools, which we then implemented only at these few schools at which we measured the impact, which means that these experts helped us to set the basic criteria, or maybe the most essential indicators that we were looking at, and also helped us design surveys. It didn't cost more than €1,000 per project usually, and you just have someone who helps you from like expert perspective, and then you can just implement it yourself at a smaller scale, which needs to be representative. But yeah, of course, if you want to do it on a great national level, that would take more funding. But I think it's very important if we want to know what works best and what is worth implementing on a larger scale as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess there are no more questions and comments. There were pretty many, actually. We have exceeded our working time. To sum up, I think we had a pretty good overview of the system of quality management, quality assurance of youth work in several EU countries. That would be a good example for us. There are state support is mainly framed around to quality assurance and recognition of qualification in all cases. Use of modern technologies is also an important aspect, especially with the current developments or technological developments, and taking in account that use is more and more increasingly attached to technologies, and it's better to somehow adjust to these new realities. There are a number of serious challenges we have in Georgia. There is no national system of quality assurance, no legal regulations for the status of youth worker, no monitoring and evaluation and strategic approaches in the youth organizations. So there is a lot to be done here, and that's also an opportunity for us to work. So I think this is a good start, good kickoff, and I think it will be also a good resource for the youth agency to continue its very good work in this direction. As Nino has mentioned, there are some developments in terms of recognition of youth workers. I think this paper will contribute to further development of this work. As I already mentioned at the beginning, we will have 1 week for additional comments and suggestions on the paper, and afterwards it will be finalized and shared to all participants. Thank you everybody for participation.
Thank you very much. And the presentations also will be sent to us, yes? And
yes.
paper as well and presentations.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Paper and presentations will be shared by email, and we are waiting for your contributions. Thank you.
Thank you. We have all the papers and presentation on our foundation webpage. Okay. We will send everything, but in case later you'd like to see previous presentations or otherwise, you can search our website. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ivana.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.
Bye.
Bye.
Now she telephone.
Yes.